So today we will just contemplate a little bit more, a little actively contemplating on Lord Shiva and mostly what it means to a Vedantin, somebody who has embraced the path of especially Advaita Vedanta. This is that symbolic sakara support of Lord Shiva. So this is the first thing when we think of Lord Shiva, that symbolic thing which destroys that all those things which we are deludedly taking as reality. That is that first symbolism of Lord Shiva. And he is where, that becomes that guru, that first guru, that Adi Guru of everyone. So he's that first guru, that first yogi, and that symbolically that first spiritual deity for humankind. So he's that spiritual teacher we take refuge in when we come to this kind of a that nivritti marga, that path of mostly through things such as deep study, contemplation, yoga practices. Now the other thing is we move from there because that destruction there is that destruction of wrong knowledge, of ignorance, of all our negative samskaras, that worldly samskaras, our kleshas. So that is what that Lord Shiva is first symbolically when we talk about what we call that saguna sakara, that form which has these attributes. So those attributes are very sacred to the devotee. So when we meditate on Lord Shiva, we are bringing to that mind those attributes of one who has that supreme detachment, the one who is a destroyer of ignorance, the one who can bring us to that spiritual illumination by opening our own third eye. So during especially Maha-Shivratri in the North India, it is very common for people to go to temple for many days prior to that Shivlinga. And we traditionally take the Ganga Jal or some water, pure water, and we offer that on that Shivlinga. That also is a symbolism of where we are now moving towards that Saguna Sakara to Saguna Nirakara, where we are dropping that form and we are trying to cleanse our mind of all those fixation on that worldly objects and go into that deeper thing of worshipping the reality. So the Shivlinga is a very clear indication that we move from a formless representation of deities or fixation with the world to that the form-based representation of the world to that formless worship of God or any divine deity. So this moving from this form to formless is supported by this representation of Lord Shiva. How we move from that form thing to this representation of formless. So then what happens, we are able to see that in every vibhuti of the world, like how in Bhagavad Gita, the vibhuti yoga, everything is a sign of the world, Lord's glory. The sun, the sun is a representation of the light of God, The mountain is a representation of that stillness of the divine. So similarly, that linga is a representation of that supreme deity, that supreme consciousness. It is a pointer to that higher reality. The highest reality cannot be directly spoken about. So one way the Indian scriptures and mythology took to is representing God as a perfect being, all the pure ways through which God is worshipped. But that will still keep our mind in worldliness. That will still keep us to worshipping deities. And there is where the religions come in, and there is where conflicts can come, because my worship of one deity can conflict with another god's worship. So we move in that thing where we move from that Saguna Nirakara to Nirguna Nirakara. This is where that non-duality, moving from duality worship to non-duality worship. So the path of moving from duality to non-duality is when our mantra changes from Om Namah Shivaya to Shivo-Hum. So this is the journey. Om Namah Shivaya is a common, normal, religious bhakti worship of divine where we surrender completely. That complete surrender, of all of one being to God. That is, every religion has that. Om Namah Shivaya. I bow to that Lord. I take refuge in that Lord. I take refuge in that Supreme God. That is that duality worship. With that blessings of that worship, and with that blessings of all the teachers, and that study, understanding, contemplation of Advaita Vedanta, we move to this thing where we say, I am that Lord Shiva, Shivo-Hum. That journey of shift, that shift from Om Namah Shivaya to Shivo-Hum, is that pointer that is the real aspect of the all spiritual teachings, the highest goal of all teachings, and which Lord, we got it, we have received it through the revival of the Advaita Vedanta teachings by Shankaracharya, and that Nirvana Shataka, Mano Buddhya Hankara Chittani Naham. There, in that everything, he says Shivo-Hum, Shivo-Hum, Chidananda Rupa, Shivo-Hum, Shiva, Shivo-Hum, Shivo-Hum, Chit Ananda, that supreme consciousness. I am that consciousness. I am that supreme bliss, the joy. Chidananda Rupa, Shivo-Hum, Shivo-Hum, I am that consciousness. So here, that what we were worshipping and that worshipper becomes one. The process of the worshipper, worshipping and worshipped, all of them become one. So this is that ultimate goal of even yoga and all that spiritual paths, where one merges into that and becomes that. So this journey, from duality to non-duality, is that teachings of Advaita Vedanta. And here is where, that Shiva, that Lord we were worshipping, merges in us, or we merge in that Lord Shiva. So this is that highest shift of relation. And this is the pointers given through all that Vedanta teachings and all what we call non-dual teachings through other many different paths. Also the non-dual teachings come. But how it comes to is through this thing where that essence of you and that essence of Lord Shiva is not different through this Mahavakyas.